Okay, so today we wanted to tell you a little bit about Chatterbug and who we are and what we do as a speech and language therapy company. Not a lot of it's changed massively since I qualified. I trained back in 2004, giving away my age, at UCL, and I believe UCL no longer do an undergraduate speech and language therapy degree. So that's where I qualified. And my first role was in Tower Hamlets, working in Shawstart, which no longer exists. But it was a really challenging role, and it's my first role, and I was working in an amazing multicultural community, which gave me an opportunity to really develop my skills quite quickly. But I had to be really, really brave. And I worked throughout London in a number of different boroughs before moving up to the north in 2008. So this is a little bit about my journey and why I set up Chatterbug. I'm one of the original founders, and hopefully it will inspire you. I don't know how many of you have thought about working in the independent sector, but definitely when I first graduated, and over the last few years it's changed massively. Most of our SLTs went to work in the NHS, but now I believe it's a 50-50 split. So a lot of SLTs are going to work in the NHS still, but 50% are now also looking at other organisations, be that independent organisations, charities, or other social enterprises. So, but I want to tell you a little bit more about Chatterbug and working for Chatterbug and what that's like. And towards the end in our Q&A section, we give you the opportunity to ask me questions around preparing for your first roles. So this particular talk is targeted and aimed towards SLT students that are nearly there. This is it, guys. You're at the final leg of your training, and in a few months many of you will be fully qualified speech and language therapists. So well done. It's an amazing career. It's a really tough journey to get there and complete the degree, but you're almost there. So hang on in there, and well done for all your achievements today. So a little bit about Chatterbug then and who we are. Chatterbug is a social enterprise, and I mentioned that our headquarters are in the north in Leeds, but we are a national organisation, and we work across the country commissioned by local authorities, the NHS, schools directly themselves. What really stands out about Chatterbug as an organisation is that we're a recognised NHS business partner. There aren't many speech and language therapy independent organisations that have that status, and we have, and that basically means that we are registered to provide NHS service, where we are commissioned directly by the NHS to provide their speech therapy service. We have a private clinic up here in the north, but we also offer virtual private clinics as well. And there are a number of services that we provide within our private clinic that I'll tell you a little bit more about in a few minutes. So what makes us a social enterprise? So we very much are a business, and we have business objectives like any other business. But right from our conception back in 2008, we've also had social objectives as a business, and we've always felt that in order to be a business, we are in a privileged position where we can do a lot of good, and we've always operated in that way. It's just made complete sense to us. So our social objectives are, so we have the 3 R's, and we have recruit and train a high quality workforce is our first R. So we spend a lot of time investment into training our staff, developing our staff, but we also and that's across our workforce, not just speech and language therapists. So we recruit a lot of apprentices within our admin roles, our marketing roles, and our business structure is constantly evolving. So recruitment and training is really important. I'll talk a little bit more about what we view as a high quality workforce in a few minutes again as well. The second R is raise awareness of the impact of speech, language and communication difficulties. Now, A lot of people are now becoming aware of speech and language difficulties and that speech and language therapists exist. Unfortunately, we still don't have the recognition that we need. And there are still large proportions of children starting school with underdeveloped speech and language difficulties. And obviously, COVID has had a significant impact in that. And in some schools, particularly in the north, up to 80% of children starting reception may have some level of speech and language need. So it's definitely there. But for us, it's about people understanding the impact, the lifelong impact speech and language difficulties can have, and about thinking about how we can advocate and support our children and young people to self-advocate as well, so it doesn't continue to have lifelong impact. And you'll all be aware about the impact it has on education, but also we all know that speech and language difficulties have an impact on mental health and employment opportunities. A large number of the prison population have undiagnosed speech and language needs. So speech and language impacts all aspects of life. It's not just a temporary thing. And reducing our environmental impact has always been a priority for us as an organisation. So since we started back in 2008, we've always been keen to remain paper light and moving on towards paperless. We are a low carbon neutral business. We have a whole well-being program, which I will go into a bit more detail, that is all around educating our team and our workforce around their own social impact that they have on the environment, and about reducing their impact through everyday changes, whether that's exploring different diet and lifestyles, or looking at how they can reduce their own carbon footprint. So those are our social objectives. And as I said, we have our business objectives. And our vision is to be the leading provider of speech and language therapy services known for delivering high quality evidence-based impact that makes real results, that provides real results. Because what a lot of schools have said to us in the past is that, yep, our speech and language therapists, all they do is that they come in and they assess our children and leave us a therapy program. But we know that speech and language therapy done well can transform lives. And we're really passionate about showcasing that. But the training for a speech and language therapist is so variable throughout the country, and your own placement experiences are very variable. And some of you actually get the opportunity within your placements to follow children through therapy and young people through therapy and see the impact it has. But actually, we know that our impact takes time and it builds up over time. And we know that there are certain elements of speech therapy that can only be delivered by a speech and language therapist for it to have the desired impact that it does. And a watered down approach of just providing a program into schools isn't enough. And we're really, really passionate about that and helping schools identify where they can support their pupils, but also where actually our specialist skills need to be used. And I honestly think speech therapy is one of the few professions that I'm aware of where we expect our therapists to go out and train others to deliver therapy when we've never had the opportunity to deliver therapy ourselves. And it's a bit like asking teachers to go into schools and teach when they've actually never taught themselves. It just seems a bit crazy, really. So we're really passionate that our therapists really understand how to deliver therapy, understand how therapy really impacts life. And it's great that Johnny can say the S sound, but how does that change his life? How does that revolutionize things for him? How is he able to do something now that he wasn't able to do before? And how does that change his life? So, and when I said that we'd talk about 21st century healthcare and what healthcare is required to deliver has changed, and what the population need has changed, and it's constantly changing and evolving. And as a speech and language profession, we need to change and evolve with that. And one of the reasons why I've been off for this time is that my daughter was actually diagnosed with leukemia back in February this year. And so we've been thrusted into healthcare and receiving healthcare. And again, it's reminded me of how important it is that we as professionals, as healthcare professionals, are continue to think innovatively, and we're brave and we're willing to face challenges, because actually every patient that we treat is different. They have their own journey. What works for one doesn't necessarily work for everyone, and we need to be open and willing enough to be able to trial something. And so many times when I've managed speech and language therapy services in my career, what I found is that we end up recommending things that we're comfortable and familiar with, but it's not necessarily right for that particular client. And we're afraid to explore what that client feels they need. Sometimes it's not appropriate, but listening to the client and exploring what's going to work for them is really important, because it means that they'll be able to carry that through. And throughout this journey that I've been on with my daughter, that's really been brought home, that what we need from our healthcare practitioners is we need innovation, we need them to be brave, and we need them to be willing to face challenges to bring about change. And it's not to do anything outside of your comfort zone, because actually you'll have that clinical skills and knowledge, but it's about willing to think about things differently. And when you first qualify, you've been trained in aspects of the role, but there's lots of other elements of the role that you might not necessarily have received training or had the opportunity to observe. Don't be afraid to go back to the basics. Don't be afraid that it's going to be difficult. The first 6 months of your career are going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. You think the degree is really, really hard, but I tell you, the first 6 months are going to be tough. But if you can work through that first 6 months, the career itself is so rewarding. And I've been doing this for 20 odd years now. And for me, it's still as exciting as it was when I first started. And I mentioned that in my first role, I worked as a newly qualified practitioner in a Sure Start service. And that was actually, in hindsight, a really tough role, because not only was I having to implement and understand my own theoretical knowledge and apply it in a practical way, in the model that I worked, there was a lot of coaching and supporting others to deliver therapy. And on top of that, you had an assistant that worked with you that you had to train and support and manage on a day-to-day basis. So it was a really tough role, but actually it was the making of me, because it really pushed me out of my comfort zone and helped me to develop lots of skills very, very quickly. But you have to be ready. You have to be willing to take that challenge. So Chatterbug, our values as an organization are open, connected, dependable, and fortitude, because these are the values we feel make the 21st century healthcare practitioner that I'm talking about. You have to be open. You have to be able to share what your challenges are and what your thoughts, ideas are. Connected is all about working with everyone in your environment. You have to be ready to work with whoever is important in that young person or child's life, or adult if you're working in adults. Dependable is all of us as an organization about how we always deliver what we say we're going to deliver. And fortitude is all about that bravery that I mentioned, because it's going to be tough, and we're going to be asking you to be brave and try new things, and try things that you might not have been trained or delivered. So the idea, so Chatterbug was set up in 2008, and the reason what happened, what the significant milestones around that time was that I moved from the south to the north, and I realized there's a massive postcode lottery, and actually services were more accessible in the south than they were in the north. I also found that there was I went from being in a band 7 role, so quite high up in the NHS, to moving to the north and taking on an NQ position, because actually there weren't many roles at that time, and got a window into the world of what it's like to be an NQP with very little support and supervision. And then around a similar sort of time, I actually got diagnosed myself with cancer and became a service user. So became a patient and was experiencing what it's like to be on the receiving end of healthcare. So I decided to set up Chatterbug, and it went from 2013, I think we had one school, to today we are a national organisation with lots of, I think maybe over 400 plus schools, and obviously NHS contracts and LA contracts. So it's been an amazing journey, and we have a workforce of about 50 odd members of staff with a marketing team. We are very excitingly recruited a data apprentice, because actually we understand that we want to use data in a way that helps us to understand the population that we're serving and how we can improve healthcare. So we're always evolving, and we're always finding new innovative ways of working, and we're in the process of developing a number of innovative tools that will transform how we deliver speech therapy, in using apps and online tools as well, virtual tools. It's a very exciting time to be part of Chatterbug. As an employer, a typical day for NQPs, most of our NQPs work in schools 9 to 3, and then, as I explained, 3:30 back in the office is booming. They use that time to do their admin, supervision, any meetings that they have. Our team here in Leeds will also see private clients in that time. And during the school holidays, we always have lots of projects that we're working on, because innovation is a big thing for Chatterbug. So our staff will be involved in projects. We have 4 CPD days a year, plus our away day, which has a very heavy CPD focus as well. In terms of supervision, because that's a question that we get asked a lot at our interviews, you will have a detailed induction program, but throughout our time, we've also developed a core skills, clinical core skills program, because what we were finding is that the level of skills that a lot of our SLTs were coming with was so variable. Some haven't had the opportunity to write reports, some haven't had the opportunity to analyze assessments. So we spend a lot of time focusing on some of these key areas that will help you get up and running quickly, and also enhance the knowledge you already have, but in more depth and more detail. Because we have quite a large workforce and everyone comes back at the end of the day, you have access to daily informal supervision. We have our online chats and online groups. A lot of our virtual workforce will seek support via those forums. It's very social as well. We've also created a competence framework that will give you more structured guidance on what evidence to collect to help complete your NQP framework. And that's really, really helpful. And then there's regular points where you can submit evidence for sign off for your line managers. We have journal clubs where we look at different areas in more detail and look at the latest research. And I've mentioned the CPD days. So we do quite a lot around supervision. We have clinical supervision groups as well. And we use a solution focus approach. So the solution focus approach can be frustrating when you just want the answer, but the idea is it's about developing that long-term, those long-term skills, and it's an approach that allows you to think reflectively and think about how you will handle a situation. And there are opportunities to obviously sometimes you just want to know, what do I do with this child? But that solution focused approach, you go through that approach to kind of problem solve what answers you already have, and then you have a team that will give you suggestions of things to try. So the two approaches are used, but definitely the solution focused approach is something that we push, but it also helps you become more independent and confident as professionals yourselves. We always say no hand-holding culture, because what we find is that you've done the training, you've achieved it, you're a qualified speech and language therapist, and what we want you to do is go and try things with that safety net of clinical supervision there to help you if you are really struggling. But it's really important at this stage, if you don't go off and try things independently on your own, then when will you? Because 10 years down the line, it's probably too late. So we need you to do it right at the beginning so we can help you become confident. And actually, we expect you to get things wrong. We expect you to fail, because through those failures and mistakes, you are learning and you're gaining so much. And actually, this is something that's been really, really valuable that I've taken away this year, being on this journey with my daughter who has leukemia. And the first sign of an infection, what they will do with her is they will treat with antibiotics, and then we'll take some blood and they'll send that off for analysis. They won't wait to know what infection she has before they treat, because that's too late. So they will treat first, and then they will wait for the results to come after. And that approach of working is something that we've been exploring for a number of years. And we've come up with the intervention first model, which is all around providing a block of intervention for children, so they're not waiting for long periods of time to be assessed, but providing that intervention, seeing how they respond to intervention, and then making our decisions based on that, and providing assessment based on the intervention and the results of the intervention. So that's a really new approach being pioneered here at Chatterbug, and an approach that I'm even more passionate about, because let's face it, if we can do it with cancer patients, then it's a no-brainer really for speech therapy, isn't it? Because we're not putting anything into the body, and it works, and it provides greater results, and a lot faster, and fewer teachers left frustrated waiting for assessment information. Oops. Okay. Staff perks. So let's talk about staff perks, because there are lots of wonderful perks working here. So the first things first is Chatterbug corporate perks, and this is where you can get money off, or you can get offers. So we have a website that you go through. It's a third company website, and you can get money off and vouchers for things like train travel, or shopping at John Lewis, or your Sainsbury's or Tesco's, wherever you shop. So that's great, and you can collect points that you can use towards those things. We have Health Shield, which is our company-sponsored healthcare cash plan that you can use towards things like dental appointments. Physio is the one that I tend to use quite a lot, or chiropractor as well. We also have a 24-hour online GP, which you can which is great, and you can use for yourself and for any dependents that you have. We have long-term sickness cover as part of that as well. Also, as part of Health Shield, they do a whole range of wellbeing programs all online that you can access. You have access to a 24-hour helpline for mental health support as well, which is completely confidential. And we have a maternity package as well. So loads of staff perks. Career progression, what does that look like? So as I explained, you will get the slides shared with you from today's talk, which has an organizational chart which kind of maps out what our structure looks like. But it is evolving, because we are a new growing organization. But there are loads of scope for development here. So a lot of our SLTs start with us as NQPs, go on to take on more specialist roles. So we have just last year announced the developing specialist roles, because we realize that there is a little bit of a gap where people are ready to develop but need a little bit more support. And then we have advanced practitioners, and they have specialist clinical areas, and then we have our senior SLTs as well. And we also have a clinical lead for the entire service, and a SLT team leader. And then we have our non-clinical departments as well. You can also start with the organization as a communication and language specialist. So and we have a 3-month training program for, so this is ideally for people who are really interested in speech therapy, don't have a speech therapy degree, but may want to go on and apply for a speech therapy degree, or are interested in going down the route of an SLT apprenticeship, which is also very, very new. And we have a whole training program for them as well. So that's a little bit about our structure. And just to give you an idea of types of specialists we have an autism specialist, we have a complex needs specialist, we have dysphagia specialists in our Holton team, a speech sound specialist. So we have a wide range of specialisms within our service, and looking to develop more. And our aspirations as an organisation, as I mentioned, are to create confident SLTs that are brave, inspirational, and willing to challenge themselves in order to provide the best possible support to change lives. Because if people don't believe in you, they're not going to follow your recommendations, and ultimately that's what we need them to be able to do. Some comments from our staff. Actually, I think it's probably best if if I send these over to you, you can see that. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. So we've already emailed them to you. So if you want to open up the slides, please do. But there is some comments from our current staff about what they love. I will read one out. This is from one of our NQPs called Olivia. And she says, Chatterbug provide opportunities for you to learn and develop experiences in your area of clinical interest whilst giving you great mentoring and supervision. I have felt extremely supported by not only my line manager, but from the clinical supervisors, group supervision, peer supervision, and NQP groups. So that's great. But you could have a look. There's loads on there. So a little bit more about how we differ as an organisation to other SLT organisations. So for us, it's about being innovative and continuously looking for ways of how we can make speech and language therapy accessible to all, not just people who can pay for the service, but for anyone. And we're already exploring ways we can broaden our reach. We are a social enterprise, so for us, the impact that we have on our communities is really, really important. We're able to work with schools in underprivileged communities, so we target schools where we know that there is a high level of need. So the north is a big area for us. For our NHS commissioned services, we have shorter waiting times. So one of our NHS services is a 4-week assessment. So families receive an initial assessment within 4 weeks, and that is very, very ambitious and quite hard to achieve and maintain. But we achieve that. And for us as well, the patient experience is really, really important. So the waiting times, how we communicate, how we share our reports. We've had lots of positive feedback about the resources that we have, but how we share our information with families and teachers as well. And some of the services we provide, so we do a wide range of training for SENCOs. We have our autism assessment panel, which was launched just tentatively this year, and we're hoping to offer more autism assessments next year. So that is a multidisciplinary team providing NICE approved autism assessments. We provide EHC assessments. Even if you're not commissioning our services, we can provide that as a standalone service. We provide telehealth assessment and therapy. We work in special schools, resource bases. I mentioned the intervention first approach as well. And we also do medical legal assessments as well. So I guess the real question here is Chatterbug for you? And I will leave you with a series of questions to think about. So the first thing is, do you want to be part of something that is more than just a job? Because the staff here, I would say, don't see Chatterbug working here as a job. It's part of a movement. Are you open to challenges and believe in personal development? It's not for you if you're not ready to grow. It's a place where we encourage growth and we encourage people to contribute. We as an organisation are very reflective. We're always looking at ways of how we can improve ourselves. It's definitely a place for you if you're a future leader. So are you wanting to be a future leader? Do you see yourself leading a team or leading others? Do you want to grow and develop with the organisation? Do you have ideas and want the chance to implement these? Have you noticed a gap in the market? So those are the questions I'll leave you with. And now is an opportunity for you to ask me some questions about interview techniques or how to survive your first job or anything like that. It's frustrating that the chat feature is not working today, but tweet or email us questions. Cleo's looking, keeping an eye out. But I will say that one question that does come up quite a lot is around our supervision. And I think I've covered that in quite a lot. So I think in your first role, if you have, a lot of you will have interviews lined up, that is definitely something to understand and get examples of what their supervision and support looks like. What happens when things go wrong, or if you're not understanding something? How will the organisation support you? The other question that comes up is around career progression, which I've tried to cover today. Find out about career progression. How is it that you are able to show that you're ready for a more specialist role? How do you go about looking for opportunities? How do you go about developing yourself so you're ready in that position to take on those opportunities? So the way we do it here at Chatterbug is we say if you have a specialist area that you're really, really interested in, talk to your line managers about it in your line management. And it's always a 50-50 relationship. Show us how you're interested, show us what you've done to develop and grow that interest, and then we will look for opportunities for you. Right, I'm going to look at Cleo now to see what other questions there are.
We haven't got any at the minute, but just to specify as well, it doesn't have to be Chatterbug related. Any questions you have about the career, just in speech and language therapy, anything you're wanting to know before going into your first job role, go ahead and ask anything, because Asma's more than happy to do that. At any point.
Yeah, so absolutely anything. It doesn't have to be in relation to your working here. It could be anything to do with going into your first role. But my advice to you would be is prepare for that 6 months to be really, really hard. And to be fair, first few months in any job is really, really tough because you're learning about the company, you're learning about how things work within that organization or company. And in your case, you're trying to remember all your clinical knowledge. Now, we have a fantastic blog on the imposter syndrome, and I'll tell you that imposter syndrome doesn't go away. You're always going to have firsts. You're always going to struggle when you do your first. Even I, to this extent, I'm still learning. And to be fair, there's always a different way to do things. And when I've done supervision with NQPs, one of the things that I used to always find is that when they've taken over a workload or a caseload from a more experienced therapist, they always question themselves, especially when they think something's not being done right, and they question themselves. And actually, sometimes an experienced therapist can become a bit complacent because they've become very comfortable in their role. So don't be afraid to question that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've got it wrong. It's always good to add fresh perspective. And when I'm struggling with a case, that's the thing I do. I think, right, back to the drawing board. Let's start at the beginning. Why did this person come to us? What is it that we want them to achieve? What is it that they want to achieve? Back to the drawing board. Let's start again. I feel like we've got a question.
We do indeed. So we just wanted to know, do we offer dysphagia training to NQPs to achieve level C?
Yeah, so yes, we do. At the moment in Holton, we have we have a dysphagia clinic and we take on dysphagia caseload. It's an area that we're looking at to broaden because what we're finding over the last few years, there's been more inquiries, even from our complex needs clients, and a lot of them will have dysphagia needs. We do have dysphagia qualified SLTs that are very, very experienced. And one of our newly qualified practitioners recently has completed the her dysphagia competencies and is due to sit her dysphagia exam this summer. So yes, we have lots of experience of supporting. And I mean, let's be realistic here. We won't be expecting you to go and do dysphagia training in your first 6 months or even within the first year, because actually you need to be able to cover the foundation skills and understand your basic role, your day-to-day role. And also for us, we want to invest in people that have invested in themselves and us as an organization. So yeah, we can support. We definitely have opportunities for dysphagia therapists. It's a question that we get asked quite a lot. And complex needs is the other one. We in Leeds have a part of the blueprint for their ASD resource provisions. So we have a lot of ASD resource provisions, but a lot of our provisions also have children throughout the country, not just here in Leeds, have children with a wide range of complex needs.
We also have, can we ask what the first few weeks look like when you start in Chatterbug? Are we eased into the speech therapy progression?
Okay, so the first few weeks, what they look like at Chatterbug. So our induction program, if I'm really honest, is under constant review, and the reason for that is that we know that it's really important to get it right, and we want to take on feedback from any new NQPs that start with us. So what it currently looks like, and it has evolved and changed, and it may change again because we review it every year because we take on quite a large cohort in September. But what it currently looks like is you will have a whole range of office-based training based on our core competencies, our core skills program. You'll have the opportunity to shadow therapists into the settings. Some of that might be virtual. Majority of it is face-to-face, depending on where you're based. You will be given set schools to work with or set caseload to work with, and then you will have access to regular supervision. Now, that's bespoke to you as an individual. You'll definitely have daily supervision when you first start, and that will reduce slowly to weekly, and then monthly group supervision. But the point here is that you can access supervision at any point as well, whether it's from your peers or whether it's from someone senior, because you'll have access to the chat or to them face to face if you come back to a base. So following the shadow. So like I said, we don't have a hand-holding culture here. You've completed the degree. You've been students. We want you to go away and actually have a go at doing the role and then come back to us with questions. And a lot of people find that the first few weeks are okay. It's after that they start to have questions. So we give you as much exposure in the first 2 weeks to a wide range of activities. For example, you'll be able to shadow some therapy sessions, an initial assessment. You might do a joint private client session. So loads of observations and opportunities to ask questions. And at the moment, we're trying to build a whole bank of videos. We already have some that will answer some of those common questions that you might have and give you support and training around some of those everyday recommendations that you might be making. For example, colorful semantics is a big one, shape coding. So there's loads of training programs and videos on how to implement those strategies as well. So hopefully I've answered that question.
Just follow up with the dysphagia one. Will the training broaden to leads as well?
So this is actually an area that we are exploring. We have more special schools and more complex needs and get more dysphagia requests. And as I explained, we do have an autism assessment panel, which means, and it's NICE approved, which means we have access to a pediatrician as well. So it's something that our clinical lead and team lead are currently actively exploring. It's not up and running in Leeds at the minute.
Do we offer the opportunity to take sabbatical?
Do we offer the opportunity to take sabbatical? Absolutely, yes. Obviously, it depends on it's very bespoke to different individuals why you want to take a sabbatical, and we really value that life experience, and definitely have had members of the team. In fact, we have one that's going off on a sabbatical at the beginning of the year, and we've had someone that's returned fairly recently who went traveling for a year. So yeah, it's absolutely something that we support and encourage at whatever point you are in your career. Obviously being realistic, if you start today and want to go on a sabbatical next week, that would be unlikely. But yeah, it's something that we're really passionate at supporting. When you join Chatterbug, and this sounds like a bit of a cliche, but you have to experience it for yourself. You're joining a family. People genuinely care and people want you to do well. And we as a management team get really excited about your firsts. And I always use parenting analogies, and sometimes I worry about it being patronizing. But I've realized that actually it's the best example of how we feel about our employees, is that we get that real joy and buzz from seeing you grow and develop within your roles. And actually, we want you to be better than us. We want you to be able to deliver things that we're not necessarily good at ourselves, because if you're great, then the organization thrives and the more people we can help. So it's definitely something that we get excited about. And sabbaticals are sometimes, or just having breaks in your career, sometimes there are opportunity to develop other skills. So yeah, definitely something that we support.
What are your top tips for interviews and what do you look for in an NQP?
So top tips for interviews. So I would say definitely for us as an organisation, find out about a little bit about the organisation. And I know that's a classic piece of advice, but really you'll be really surprised at how people don't even bother researching about the organisations of the team that they're going to go and work for. So definitely research. Now, for me, I'm not great at interviews. I get really stressed because I have too many ideas and I can't structure them. So what I tend to do is take a pen and paper, and I explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and I structure my thoughts before I answer the question. I also do things like I summarize at the end. So I'll say so in summary, because that's a guaranteed way of making sure that any points that you really want to make don't get lost, and then you can have a mental little tick of 3 points. Short, concise, providing real examples, and really listening to the question. And if you're unsure, ask them to repeat, or repeat back the question. Say, so from the question, I've understood this is what you're asking. Nerves are the ones that get us, and get some practice in if you can, if you have that opportunity, if university offer that opportunity. So top tips: prepare, learn about the organization, find a method that works for you in terms that will allow you time to structure your question. So for me, it's pen and paper. I summarize the question myself. Don't write down the question word for word, because that means the interview panel has to wait, and they probably won't like that very much. But just summarize some key points that you're going to say, and summarize at the end, just like I've done now. So these are the 3 things that I think are the most important to that question. And practice if you can.
So you mentioned the first 6 months are very difficult as an NQP, probably more difficult than the degree. What are your best tips for starting out as an NQP and surviving those first 6 months?
I think you have to be ready. You have to be ready to want to work, because some of the NQPs that we've had that have gone from school, college, and university, but I've had very little work life experience, they do struggle. So understanding that struggle, if you haven't worked before, what that struggle is going to be, and preparing that is going to be difficult, and understanding what the sacrifices are going to mean. We all talk about work life balance, and actually in the first 6 months I'd be lying if I said you don't take any work home, because you do, because there's loads of things that you still don't know or you need to brush up on, but that shouldn't last forever. Mentally preparing yourself that 6 months it may take over your life, but for me that was a price worth paying, because investing in those first 6 months meant that I could excel in my career very quickly. So mentally preparing that the first 6 months are going to take over your life, and being realistic with that, but also using the support network around you and talking to some of your peers who've been there, because they'll be able to share day-to-day tips with you. And well-being, having activities planned that support your well-being, focused around physical activity and eating well, are really important. And that's something that I wish I'd known when I was an NQP. So it's about having that balance. It's being okay with the fact that you're going to have to take work home and it might take over your life, but it shouldn't be a permanent thing. And setting yourself some really structured goals, because actually that 6 months, after that 6 months, it should become easier. And what we find is sometimes NQPs come in and they just can't see the wood for the trees. They think it's going to be like this forever. And all they ask for is more time, more time. But what you realize is the more admin time you give someone, it doesn't necessarily mean that they can do their admin more quickly. They just get more dependent on that time. But what you realize is that as you become more confident, those decision making won't take as long. Those decisions won't take as long to make. So actually you'll need less time. And believing that and knowing that first 6 months might be hard, but it will get easier. That's really important. And having a 6-month plan, that's not something that I did, but actually in hindsight, that would have been really good. knowing exactly what mapping out what my 6 months are going to look like, and setting some milestones, and being really, really open and talking to your line managers and asking for support.
So does Chatterbug work in Birmingham, and how do SLTs get back to the office for 3:30 if they're working in different places?
Yeah.
How can you work virtually?
Yeah, so it's a mixture, and it very much depends on where you work. So we don't have a base in Birmingham, but we do in Leicester, and it's probably the closest. And our therapists work in schools 9 to 3, and then they work from home for the rest of the day. Sometimes they stay in school till 5. Some of them go back home and finish their working day from home. In Holton, where we do have 2 clinic bases, our staff will work in schools as well, or they'll have clinic days, and then go back to their bases and offices. So it's a mixture. And then we do have some staff that work exclusively virtually, and obviously they will work from home. So it is a real mixture. We do encourage people to come back to the office at the end of the day, because that's where you get all your informal support and informal supervision. And as I explained, we do have a massive focus on well-being. So we have a whole well-being program, and a lot of the well-being activities happen at the end of the day. And for our virtual team, we do a lot of the activities virtually, but we're looking to make that more effective next year, because we have more staff that work across the country as we're expanding and growing.
What is the route into private practice for NQPs?
What is the route into private practice? So it's very much the same. It's about looking for opportunities. Most organisations now advertise their vacancies on Indeed. I know we advertise all of ours on social media and Indeed, so looking out for those vacancies. There is a massive demand in independent practice, but again, I would look at the structure, because there are some companies that are very, very small. Now, personally, I wouldn't have chosen a small company, because the opportunities to grow and develop are limited. You're quite often working with set caseloads in schools, and there's very little opportunity to move around. So look out for, I think that's what the question is asking, is how to get a role in the independent sector. And I think it's exactly the same. It's just looking out for those opportunities and vacancies. If the question is more around setting up your own independent practice, that's a little bit more complicated, and you can do that as an NQP, believe it or not. Would I advise it? Probably I wouldn't, because you would have to look at setting up your own supervision, and finding your own settings and schools to work with, and then managing the entire business side of it as well. And that's just another added challenge. So hopefully I've answered that question.
This one's a very interesting one. They're just wondering, do we work with children or adults with voice disorders or transgender voice? It might be a niche area, but they're looking into this like more closely alongside dysphagia.
Yeah, voice is an area that really, really fascinates me, and it's only in the last few years where we've started to get more interest in voice. But to be honest with you, thinking about our private caseload and our NHS caseload, there hasn't been that much of a demand, which really, really fascinates me. But it's an area that we would be very open to developing. I know in Manchester there is a transgender voice clinic, and obviously it's a growing need, it's a growing area of need. So it's a great, I mean, if I had an SLT that came to me and said, look, I really would like to develop this as an area of interest, it's an area that we would definitely explore. And it may be that in the future we look at voice clinics. It's an underserviced area, and there are very few voice specialists. Actually, it's an area that I'm really interested in. So hopefully that answers your question. But any idea, obviously for us, there needs to be a business case. I believe there is for voice, and we would explore that. And it might not happen straight away, but I mentioned that one of our values is dependable, and we always deliver on what we say. And we felt that there was a real opportunity and need. It's something that we would explore. Yeah.
This next one's something I can absolutely vouch for. So is Chatterbug quite a sociable place to work, and do you do work events and socials? Just quickly, my two.
Oh, I'm gonna turn you around to Cleo. She can tell you.
I've been here. This is the start of my 4th week, so just shy of a month. And I can honestly say, out of everywhere I've worked since I've left university, this is by far my favourite place. I've never just slipped into a team so easily. The office environment is fantastic. We haven't done any socials yet, but there is an away day at the end of the month, which I believe, we sort of get together, talk about how the team's doing, how we're progressing, but it's also a day to have a bit of fun. I went on a walk with one of the therapists. We often do a Friday walk.
Yeah.
There's sort of a park around there, and we were talking about that, and we'll be sort of getting involved in things like you would do in school, like field days, like rounders and everything like that. So it's just, for me, it's been a fantastic start to my career here.
Yeah.
And I can really vouch for the social side of it. Everyone's just an absolute delight and will do everything to make you feel so comfortable.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? This goes back to our values and genuine conversation that I was talking to our cleaners, and we were talking about one of the therapists, and she said, Asma, which one is it? And I said, she's the one with the long hair. She's really chatty, really friendly. And she said, you guys are so good at selecting people to come and work at Chatterbug because they're all like that, and that's genuinely true, because we love what we do and we want to create a happy work environment, because happy people will deliver great customer service and care to our staff. So there is a massive focus on well-being, and a big part of that is working together as a team. Lots of weddings and birthdays, all the usual stuff that you would expect. But it is down to you. It's about how much you want to participate, and we have quite a young workforce, in terms of young stage in their career. And people are still wanting to socialize and get involved in activities outside of work. But we also have quite a large workforce who have been here for a while, and they're thinking of settling down, and they're having families and babies. So we have that element as well. So yeah, this is a very, very sociable place to work. I can't keep up, if I'm honest with you. My own children love and see this as an extension of their own family. So yeah, it definitely has a wonderful vibe.
Just on that as well, we also do wellbeing events. So we have one coming up this Friday, in fact.
I'll let Cleo tell you about the wellbeing event.
So this is sort of our internal thing that we do to help out. As I mentioned earlier, we do it virtual for people outside of Leeds. The away days, everyone sort of comes up to Leeds. But we do have a wellness day this Friday. That'll be games, and we'll be doing virtual games to get all the different clinics involved as well. And we've done before HIIT sessions, yoga, art therapy, anything to sort of wind down the day. And one of the great things as well is that all ideas are taken on board here. So you don't have to be the person in charge of the wellness day. You don't have to be, me in marketing. I love speaking to the speech therapists and finding out what they actually want to see on our social media platforms, and what we can be doing better to reach the schools and reach other SLTs that actually what works for them, not just me trying to observe and look into it. I am a linguist, so it's something a keen interest for me, but it's just a really open place, and it's just got that really good open communication channels where everyone's involved in every single different department, and it's just such a wonderful value to have in a workplace.
Yeah. And do you know what? We're not interested in just developing you as a therapist. We want to develop you as a person, because it's a way of life for us. And we want to have as much impact as we can on the community and the world around us. And we're not just speech therapists. We're, mums, we're daughters, we're children, we're sons. Actually, we have a very, very diverse workforce, and it's brilliant. It's the most diverse place that I've worked. And I think in terms of the RCSLT statistics, I believe 79% of the workforce is female, white female. And I would say that our workforce, I'm not sure what the statistics are, but it's definitely not 79% white female. It's very, very mixed. We have, just in our HQ in Leeds, we have at least 4 or 5 males, all from different backgrounds, different class. Within our SLT team, we have pretty much every religion covered, I want to say, maybe, or close to. And it's really interesting. We encourage people to talk about them. We encourage people to share their ideas and their values and their cultural celebrations. It really, really is wonderful. It's nice, and that's something that I'm really proud of. And actually, we've never had to work on it consciously. We've always been diverse, but over the last year, we're trying to make it more explicit that we are a diverse team, we are a diverse workforce, and we're really proud of that.
That's all our questions for now that have come through.
Brilliant.
If you have any ongoing after we finish live, you're more than welcome. Pop me an email, I'll send it over to Asma, we'll be happy to share it, or you can contact us on any of our socials. On the slides I've sent across, there is a page that has all our different social media. There is also information about a virtual clinic opportunity for final year students. So let me just have a quick look at that now to just remind you. There is more information on our social media pages. Again, if you have any questions about it, you're more than welcome to email me because I've got all the information there, but it's pretty much all across our social. So it is for any final year student in speech and language therapy. It is virtual, so it's accessible from any university. It's not assessed, it's just a bit of work experience for you, get an idea of Chatterbug working life and just life as an NQP. So it's you can either do a full week in a speech sound clinic, which is the week commencing 15th of August. It will be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Alternatively, if you are busy, I know a lot of you have placements, I know a lot of you have part-time jobs over summer. It's all dependent on your availability. You can do a 4 to 5 week block where you do 1 day a week minimum, and that's, I believe, under a that's either, I'll have to double check, one of them stammering and one of them speech sound therapy. But like I say, if you check our social media, it's all on there, or if you pop me an email. So it's just learning the ins and outs of being an NQP, so things like delivering therapy, your case note writing, and then just working with the parents and schools and just sort of learning the different therapy approaches that are there. So if you are interested, pop me an email. I can send across more information. There's more information on our social media, or if you pop an email to recruitment@chatterbug.com with your cover letter or any questions, that's how you just apply to it. And like I say, it's for any final year SLT student. It's completely virtual, so you can do it from wherever you are, whatever university.
And at this stage, get any experience that you can. There will be a role. There'll always be roles out there, but the more you can hone your skills now, the better. And you know what? Get experience of talking to families and parents and talking on the phone. Those are some of the things that SLTs really stress about and worry about. But get those experiences. It doesn't necessarily need to be in speech therapy, but get those experiences. If you're uncomfortable on the phone, if you're uncomfortable talking to parents or teachers, try and find ways of getting those experiences. And remember, when you qualify, you've done it. You are a qualified speech and language therapist. You've got nothing to prove anymore. You've got your degree. You've earned it. You are a speech and language therapist. You just now need to believe in yourself. Read our imposter syndrome blog. It's something that everybody suffers from. Embrace it. You will suffer from it. And if you don't, then you probably should be worried. But we all suffer from it. But let's push past that barrier, because you can do it, and you've proved you can do this degree. It's a 3 or 4 year degree, and you've reached the end, and you deserve this. You've earned it, and you can do this. So good luck for the last few weeks or months of your training. Look out for our vacancies. We do have vacancies throughout the country. I think at the moment we have vacancies in Leeds and Holton, Cheshire. So look out for those vacancies and opportunities. And if you're not sure and you can't see any vacancies, just drop us an email, recruitment@chatter-bug.com. We're on all the social media channels. Find us and follow us, because you'll find out about all opportunities that are coming up on there. And if you know anybody that's interested in speech therapy as a profession and is yet to apply, whether they're a 16, 17-year-old, over the summer we're doing a free SLT information day. So that's for anybody that's wanting to find out a little bit more about the career and point them towards our website. But thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, or talking at you all. And I really hope to meet as many of you at some point in your careers in the future. And I really want to wish you all the best of luck, and enjoy it. Thank you.